Okay, so we're going to be taking a look at two things, starting with this new mech, Blockhorn. Very, very interesting. New spider mech. It is a tank, and it is 32 energy, so it is a heavy mech classification. First heavy mech to be a tank, for sure. First spider mech to be a tank as well. Very interesting. Now, on paper, this thing seems really OP. The stats, of course, as I said, 32 energy capacity. It's the highest it gets. Your HP is, pretty high because you are a tank after all. This is akin to Gatecrasher. Speed of 19, which is Sentinel speed, so not really fast, but also not terribly slow. The ability is Barricade. Deploys an impassable barricade which blocks enemy fire and most abilities. Has an amp zone behind it which increases the damage dealt by allies within. So, you have like an Ares shield type situation that stops people from walking through. It's a physical wall. This is not like a Panther or Aegis where you can walk through it. You can't walk through it. This goes for allies as well, so nobody can walk through it. Teammates can shoot through it, and it will block a lot of abilities, including like EMP, stuff like that. So akin to an Aegis Dome in that regard, right? Where anyone inside or outside the dome will not be able to use EMP or abilities like that. The shield has some amount of HP, but it also has a damage boosting pad behind it, essentially, where there's a small area, and it's very clearly marked in game, where it will boost your ally damage. Now, a damage boosting 32 energy mech is the highest damage that we currently have in the game. So, yeah, scrolling down to here, 9-second ability cooldown. That's really short for something that's theoretically disgustingly OP. Ability duration of 7. Not terribly long. That's actually not very long at all. You might end up really wishing that you had a duration implant, although a duration implant is probably not worth using on most pilots and with most weapons. Your shield durability is 500,000. There exists an implant to increase it by 50%, which will give you Aegis Dome level shield durability, which is very high, but still not impenetrable. You can take it down. It really just takes any more than 2 enemies firing at it. The damage bonus inside the area, the amp zone, is 30%. You can increase this to 60% with yet another implant, which is, obviously going to be one of the better implants to use. The damage boosting mechs always have some type of damage boosting implant, and that implant is always, really good to go for. But this is the same bonus that Seeker gets, right? So it's not huge, but it's not negligible either. This is the area, so 11.5 meter width and 10 meter depth. You can increase this as well with another implant, and since you can't increase the shield size, it's probably not worth doing. You'll see when I get to actually playing this that the shield size is kind of small, things considered. But yeah. Alright, so I am using Railgun because my build up right now. My mech and pilot are maxed, but my implants and such are not. I'm starting off with Railgun because, first thing people ask, probably, is what happens when you use super OP weapons on the thing, right? Everyone else's video is probably going to be like, using the new weapon, which is great. It looks cool. It looks fun. But what if you just, spammed the classic stuff? How OP would it be? And, yeah. Seems, obviously very solid. I would have to say, all things considered, I probably prefer a Panther in this situation. Simply because the damage bonus doesn't necessarily do me that good. I do have the implant for the damage bonus, so I'm getting, I believe, 50% total. Ow. But yeah, generally, an indestructible barrier, probably slightly more useful than a tiny shield. So, will people use Railgun on Blockhorn? I think some people certainly will, because some people certainly use everything. There's always somebody who uses one thing or another on anything. But I don't think it's going to be a norm. I don't think it's going to be the meta. Let me get this guy, yeah. Brick house coming around the... Oof, okay. That's unfortunate for me. Yeah, I'm being maybe a little too aggressive at the moment, but it's fine. There we go. And there you go. And that's going to go down. Now, the shield will block like a surge or something, and that's really nice. Alright, so using Stormrack 16s on it now. You can see my build once again. Now, an interesting thing, you know, when it comes to things like this, like Stormrack, Railgun, even, the question of, you know, will people use those meta weapons on Blockhorn? I think that the default answer is probably not, and the reason that's the case... Oh, that was nice. The reason that's the case, or the reason that I think it might be the case, is that most people, especially in the case of Stormrack, like to use 16 and 8 on other mechs. So using 16s kills the possibility of using 16 and 8s. So it kills the option for using 3 of the same weapon, which people do in 2v2 a lot, especially for Stormrack. Railgun, maybe not so much. Alright, so now I am using Savant 16s. Ooh. Once again, my build up on screen. This weapon is very fun. I think it might be pretty decent for this mech. Oh wow, that went down immediately. That's not good. Now, you know, you might be saying, okay, if this mech's not going to be using, you know, classic burst weapons, what will it be using? Will it be, you know, do I think it'll actually be a good mech for sustained fire weapons? Not necessarily. Honestly, probably not, because the duration, is very short, all things considered. And I think it's far too short to be able to make good use out of a sustained fire weapon. So more than likely, you'll find better use out of some type of sort of semi-burst weapon. And Railgun might be it, but it's hard to say. There we go. Another interesting thing about this mech is that, you know, in contrast to, let's say, Aegis, right? Where it's kind of the other mech that acts like this. Ow, damn. Where it puts down a shield, it blocks some abilities, you know, it's good cover, has a lot of HP, and it's also like a stationary shield. So in a lot of ways, it is very, very similar to Aegis. But in contrast to Aegis, it's very difficult to be aggressive with this. And the reason is because you can't move past your own barricade. Whereas Aegis, one might drop a dome a little preemptively, wait for, you know, kill something that's like getting onto a beacon, and then once the coast is clear, you know, exit the dome and onto the beacon. A Blockhorn can't do that because its shield is like literally in the way. It can't move past its shield. So you have to wait until your duration's over. Or go around, which can be probably pretty risky. So it is very interesting. It's definitely more of a defensive tank. Alright, so I now have the minigun on it. Here's the build on screen. I don't think minigun's going to be a great option for you, all in all, but is worth a shot. Let me put my shield here and just see what I can do. This guy's kind of getting in the way. Yeah. My duration's not very long, which really forces me to kind of cut what I'm doing pretty short. The mech itself seems really good. Like, I mean, on paper, like I said, it seems just OP. It's not even like borderline. There's not much question to be asked. It sounds stupidly OP and really broken. But in practice, it seems to be kind of mid. I'm not even gonna lie. Now, it is good, don't get me wrong. I think it will be it'll be a contender for the meta. It may or may not see some good meta usage. Definitely some meta players will use it, but I don't know if it's going to be a mainstream meta thing. Because it does have some pretty serious drawbacks. One being that you can't move through your shield, which actually becomes a much bigger issue than you might think. It really limits your mobility, which is already limited but just by your speed, which means that it's very limited in terms of what you can do. Now, with a team, it might be different. With a team, you might be able to do a lot of things. It might be really helpful having the team bonus and stuff like that, and just having a bit of a barrier in the way between your teammates and your enemies. It seems a little implant heavy, to be honest, the mech. So it's hard to say whether or not... Ouch. Yeah, I'm probably gonna die here. So it's hard to say whether or not it'll actually get much traction. Ow. Bruh. Alright, so now I have the new weapon, Overcharger. This weapon is very interesting. I have to build up once again. The last thing I want to say, the last note about Blockhorn, just as a mech, is that I think it's going to be really easy to just radius this thing to death. The shield is small, like, it really is. It's not very wide. You can absolutely storm rack the crap out of it. And so you're going to, as a Blockhorn user, need to be very passive in terms of what you do, which does kind of limit how you're able to play. Most good mechs are capable of being aggressive, and they're good because they're able to be aggressive without immediately dying. That said, I can't guarantee that that's how this is going to play out. I'm just giving a bit of prediction because, to be honest, I was really concerned when this mech was being teased, like all the different stuff. Let me break this. There you go. See, the EMP didn't go through, which is really nice. There. Alright. But yeah, I was very concerned. It sounded like stupidly OP. It's definitely not going to be as OP as it sounded, but whether or not it's still OP is a legitimate question. It's hard to say. After all, it is just the test server. Now, if possible, I want to max this thing day one and just do what I normally do. Try it out. Versus some players, especially. Ah, that went through. That's unfortunate. Nice. Nice. Okay. The longer you fire these weapons, the more damage they deal. And I mean, like, the closer they are to being overheated. So it is nice to just kind of keep them heated, I think. They reload really quickly, or they cool down really quickly, I should say. Oof. Well, I mean, when you overheat them, though, it actually takes quite a second. Doing 8k per shot, 10k per shot, 20k per shot. Yeah. Really builds up. There we go. Nice. Alright, so I wanted to just max out these Overdrivers just to see how they can do. So far, I'm not really impressed, to be honest. It is an assault weapon after all. But seems pretty cool. I do like it. I think it's interesting. I probably won't be able to like duplicate mine or get a good pilot going for it on like my live account for a while, unfortunately. But that just is the way that it is. In terms of like best mechs for this weapon, pretty obviously just gonna be Panther. And it's the best mech for any sustained fire weapon. Indestructible shield, you don't have to worry about how much damage is incoming. Oh, that's unfortunate. Oh, let's go. No, please. Now, it's taken multiple attempts just to get this far, honestly, so that should tell you, you know, that weapon's not exactly OP. But it is interesting. Let's go. Come on. The damage build-up idea / mechanic is nice. I don't dislike it. I actually kind of like it. And part of the reason that I like it, Plarium, if you're listening, is that akin to minigun, you are able to build this up. You're able to spin up the barrels and heat up your weapon before you actually get into a fight, if you so choose. Classically, most assault weapons, you know, like they have their whatever mechanics that they have. The Vipers are fine, but like they rely on burst damage, and the burst damage is not great. It's also not you know, super consistent. So you can't maximize your damage in much a way, except for like, you know, firing a couple shots so that your very first shot is a missile from the Viper. This way it's more like a minigun, and minigun is the only good sustained fire weapon. The reason for that is because you can spin up your barrels. Now, of course, speaking of minigun, do I think Overdriver is better or worse than minigun, right? Probably the big question. Because they're very similar, right? I would say that it's better in some ways, whereas in others, obviously, as most things are. But it has better sustained damage, better damage per minute, but because it doesn't have to reload pretty much ever, right? But its damage per shot is slightly lower. It has the same fire rate as minigun, but just, you know, slightly lower damage per shot. Which means that, you know, ultimately, as you know, as a brawler type of weapon, you will go for minigun. You won't go for this thing, probably. But they are very similar. I think this thing has slightly better effective range as well. So that's kind of nice. But yeah, ultimately, to be honest, most assault weapons, like, they need to be made into good brawlers, because that's what an assault is for, right? It's in the name. If it's not a good brawling weapon, then there's no point in using it, right? Because why spend a whole bunch of time dumping out your damage if, you know, if you can't kill multiple targets fairly easily with it? Why spend that much time when you could just spend like a fraction of that time using something like Railgun that doesn't have damage fall off, right? You could use that close quarters better than you could use most things. So yeah, overall thoughts on the weapon. It's probably not going to be the best, but it'll probably be like fairly decent as a sort of slightly longer range kind of minigun type thing with slightly less of the DPS benefits, but also none of the crazy drawbacks that minigun has, like the absurd reload time if you run into a Guardian, or you know, the slow turning speed, something like that. Which might make it pretty decent on scouts, the more aggressive scouts. So you don't have to worry about Guardians so much. But it's hard to say. I think, just in general, everything else aside, I do very much appreciate this weapon's just design. I think the animation looks amazing. Like, the firing animation looks really clean. It even has like, you know, changed color when you overheat. The weapons, like, you know, does like a little steam thing. It looks nice. The reload animation looks nice. And I think the game could really do with some better animations. So it's nice to see. But I don't think overall the weapon itself is going to be like, you know, the best. I'll have a whole lot of fun using it on the live server though. Come on, Team of Coffin. Yeah. Get this guy out. Oh, there was another one there too. Didn't even know that. I think it's definitely I think it's probably going to be better than Viper. I definitely like it better. I definitely enjoy it more than Viper. Whether or not it's actually like legitimately better is hard to say. Stop. I saw that. There we are. Man, this guy. Nice. The damage is nice. But yeah, like I said before, you kind of just have to keep the barrels spun. Minigun, quantum gun, yeah. They don't stand a chance because their reloads are too long. That is one thing that this thing definitely has over the others. The one thing that actually makes Carbine halfway decent too is just the, well, especially with the reload implant, the absurdly short reload time. And this has that, but doesn't have the absurdly low DPS that Carbine has. So that's honestly nice to see. Alright, so the last thing I want to mention is the implants. In terms of the Overdriver, you have these 3 implants. It's damage, cooling, and burnout rate, which essentially just translates to reload and mag size. There are epic and rare versions of these 2, but in terms of damage, the legendary is the only one that exists, which is very interesting and not entirely ideal. In terms of the implants for Blockhorn, though, it is entirely the opposite. Every single implant, all of these, which is the damage boost, obviously that's the one that you really want. That'll get you from 30 to 60 bonus damage. Barricade durability, 50%. That'll get you to Aegis level shield HP. Just barricade cooldown, duration. It's basically the same as just using an arbitrary cooldown duration implant, but it just doesn't work on anything else. So percentages are the same. And then the amp zone size plus 50%. You can increase the area on the ground for your teammates and such. And so that's nice. But yeah, 5 different implants for Blockhorn of Legendary. All 5 of those are in Epic. And actually, most importantly, the amp zone damage boost. 23%. Very, very similar to a Legendary. So, you know, getting this would probably be pretty beneficial if you end up getting the Mech. You can get this Epic implant as opposed to, you know, trying to worry about the Legendary, which probably won't show up in the shop. It doesn't show any of them as available in the shop, but I'm sure they'll add some of them. I won't know which ones until the mech is actually in the game. But yeah, all 5 of those are available in Epic, and all 5 of them are also available in Rare. So they're very accessible, and that's nice. But otherwise, yeah. Let me know what you think about the new mech and the new weapon. Yeah, I already know what I think about the weapon. I think that it's just going to be pretty decent, but nothing super great, nothing sensational or game-breaking. But the mech, I'm kind of on the fence on. And yeah, so let me know whether or not you think it's going to be really OP, or maybe it's not going to be that good at all. Maybe the ability just doesn't really do it for you. And the stats aren't really going to pull it through enough to make it compete with like all of these super meta mechs. Or maybe you think it'll be somewhere in between where it can kind of compete with the meta, but it's not really going to necessarily absolutely steamroll everything. I think it might be somewhere in the middle, but it's kind of hard to tell exactly where. Either way, that will be it for me. Appreciate y'all. Take care.